Come on along and listen to the lullaby of Broadway, the hip hooray and ballyhoo, the lullaby of Broadway.
Well, it doesn't matter what day of the week it is, but I'm over here with really one of my favorite church members, Marilyn Goodwin, and she came to the drive-through communion, and I said, hey, how about if I stop over and do a little video interview with you. You've led a wonderful and an interesting life. It's been visited by lots of joy and lots of sadness as well.
Right.
But Marilyn, where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in Lynn, Mass.
Okay.
And I was
the city of sin?
The city, Lynn, the city of sin, yep. And we moved to Freeport, Maine when I was going into the 3rd grade. My father started a business there called Red Rock Cola Bottling Company. And he had 19 flavors other than the cola flavor. And he tried hard, he and another guy. But, you know, they didn't have the advertising. Nobody knew what Red Rock Cola was. So if you went in the store, you picked a Coke or a Pepsi, you know.
Sure.
So it didn't last. And so eventually he moved back. Well, he came home weekends. He got a job back in Lynn, Mass. And I think he stayed at his mother's, and then he came home on the weekends. And my mother was a teacher. She was the principal of the elementary school. But of course, he took the car all week, and she didn't have a car.
Oh, boy.
It was a different world, too. You know, everybody was in the grocery store at 5 o'clock to buy their meat, because we didn't have freezers. So she walked home from school and back in the morning, and it was quite a time. But she was beloved by everybody, and my brother and sister were younger. But the upstairs in the house that they bought was a small apartment, and the woman there had a little boy, and her husband was a teacher also. So she took care of my sister during the week for a reduction in rent. And it worked out well, because when I came home, I mean, we were all in that house. And if somebody stayed home because they didn't feel good, she'd come down and check on us, you know. So, and then when I guess I was 15, we moved back to Lynn. And we moved into the house on Christmas Eve. And my brother and sister and I walked over to Goodwin's Clam Shop to get takeout for supper. And of course I didn't know Al or Jane. My father did, because he used to go in there a lot, I guess. But I said, could you please give us some ketchup and salt? And she said, I thought you wanted this to go. She always was a little. And anyway, I said, well, we just moved in and we haven't unpacked. I don't know where the ketchup and salt is. So she gave us some, and we went back. And then my father got sick of me hanging around after school, because I didn't like the move. I wanted to stay in Freeport. And, you know, 15, you know what that's like. So I finally got a job at Goodwin's. They announced in school they were looking for counter girls at 75 cents an hour.
Wow.
And so I got a job, and another friend of mine did too, and we did after school, and we did weekends, and I kept coming home and saying, there's this really good looking guy in the kitchen, you know, but I didn't know he was Jane's brother. And then I figured it out, because they used to fight, you know, how brothers and sisters do. So he finally asked me out on a date, I guess after work one night, which was quite exciting. I figured my father would say no, but he didn't. But he had known, Al's father had just died, so I hadn't met him, but my father knew him, you know, and I think there was enough of knowing that they were a really nice family that he let me go. And so at 16, he was 24.
Wow.
So that was a big,
yes,
big difference. But I finished Lynn English, and then he said, you know, you have to go to college. He had just graduated from BU and went in the Marine Corps for 2 years, so he was ready to be in a normal life, whatever that might be. And at first, you know, I was like, oh no, and I went to Colby Junior College down in New London, and loved it. It was the best. He was right. I needed that before, if we were going to get married. I was too young. I'm naive and everything else, I guess. So that was it. And then because of the hours at the restaurant, I worked there part-time, because it didn't work out to, I mean, I was working in Boston for 2.5 years, but I wasn't going to do that with the hours that he had. Yeah, so And then when we had Paul,
So what year did you get married?
it's February of 1962.
62.
We had to get married in February because they closed the restaurant for the month of February, so everybody could go to Florida. So we couldn't get married in June, July, or August because probably nobody would have come from the family, you know.
So from you were living in Lynn, and then how did you end up in Guilford?
Well, Al had a boat, and we used to come up and go on the lake with the boat. And we bought this in 1984. Oh, I know what it was. He was so sick of the restaurant business. But we had bought a cottage on August Bay for $20,000.
Oh, I saw a drawing of it, right?
Huh?
I saw the drawing.
Yes, yeah. And he did that drawing. He had a lot of artistic talent, and he actually did the yearbook for his high school and stuff like that. So we bought the cottage, and then we thinking like, I mean, it wasn't winterized. It was beautiful. I loved it. I wish I still had it, but it got too expensive to keep it after he died, and he wasn't, I wasn't getting that kind of his money, and so anyway, we kept looking, but we were looking on the lake, and that was something on Governor's Island that was $39,000, and we thought, oh my God, we'll never pay that. And it was winterized. I guess that's why we were looking at it, but we didn't do that. And so, and then he was really burnt out from the restaurant business, just totally. And some guy wanted to buy it out. The first deal fell through, and the second one, we went to the closing, and the guy was late. And actually at 9 a.m., it was officially we didn't own the restaurant anymore, and he hadn't shown up yet. But he did come in, and he had his pay, and he had a mint green leisure suit on, which quite impressed us. He didn't last in the restaurant business very long. And all of our help said we'll stay, and within a year. So we just packed up the house. We had bought this that summer, the end of the summer, we had bought this house. And Mark was going to start 9th grade.
Okay.
The other two were in college. So he was a big help to us because, he's a big guy anyway. But there was a lot to do to unpack in Linfield, which was a pretty good sized house, and then come up here.
Yeah, your house is in a beautiful little neighborhood. It's a 65 Pinecrest.
Yeah.
And the Allens live near here, and the Aronstams, and
right around the corner.
Great little neighborhood.
It really is. It's turned out that way, and the people in that big white house, they had a son that was, I think he was a year older than Mark, and he was a great basketball player. So when we moved here, Mark was 9th grade. It worked out well, and they had a younger daughter too. And then the Doltons, I don't know if you ever knew Sally and Dennis. They used to live in the house.
Yes, of course I knew Dennis Dolton. Yes.
Dennis, everybody knew
Yes.
Dennis. He died a few years ago, and they owned that house that Baxter's just bought.
Oh, that's right, and the Baxters live here. That's right.
But they bought it from Joanne and Chip Veazey, who moved to Florida.
Oh, yeah.
And so then Sally and Dennis had that house that she's in next door.
And how did you get connected to the Guilford Community Church?
Well, my friend Bev Cheek, who has a place did have a place on the lake, her mom and dad had a cottage, a house up here. And that's where they went. And somehow, I can't remember. I remember, I don't know whether they were recognized for something, maybe one church service or something, because I know they donated like the lights, not the current ones, but the ones before for them. So Bev and I are still very good friends, and so she said, they are going to do something, and I said, well, I'll meet you over there then. And it was, I think it was Wixon then, although there was one guy that was horrible. Beverly's mother was, dying, and he kept calling her up and asking her for donations.
Oh.
And they had believe me, they had probably given quite a few nice things. But
Oh, that's too bad.
so I went off and on. They had a couple of ministers that, in fact, one of them lived around the corner here, and there was a Christmas cocktail party next door, and he must have had 4 Scotch and waters, and he was, oh my, and everybody there was like, who is he? And I said, he's the new minister. So needless to say, I didn't bother to go for those, because he didn't last either. No, but I mean, he just, I don't know. I think he had a second wife. She was a lot younger, and
Well, and plus, he came a few years after Ray Wixon, and Ray Wixon was really larger than life.
yes, yeah.
So I think whoever was going to follow Ray was going to have a tough go at it.
Well, that's true.
I'm glad that there was 6 years between when Ray died and we came in
And you
2002.
But there had to be somebody else after.
Well, there was an interim minister after Ray died, and then James Boland, and then another interim minister, Donna Hankins Hall. Her husband was the chaplain at the hospital, and she was the interim minister when I came.
Oh, I don't think I ever
Yep.
went when she was there. Of course, we had the cottage then too, and we had a lot of company, especially in the summer.
Sure.
But I started going back. Who was there? Who was there just before you took over?
Well, Donna Hankins Hall.
Oh, okay. No, I must have just started.
And then there was a retired, I believe, military chaplain with roots in some roots in Guilford, who was one of the interim ministers, and I can't remember his name, but I know that people appreciated his work.
I don't remember that either. I know Bev and I went a couple times, like Joan and Bill Veazey.
Yep.
They were very devoted there. And Joan had graduated from Colby Sawyer in 1944 and thought that I was her new best friend, and I was in 59, you know. But because Chip Veazey lived across the street, it was his mother. She was quite a character.
Yeah.
She was something else. So she was always pestering me to get going and go over there.
Yeah.
And I, that was fine. Because I can remember going out and shaking Wixon's hand as you left the church. They did that every week. But I don't remember anybody else in between. I must have just not gone because I figured I didn't know them. And then you came in
I came in 2002.
Okay.
And what year did Mark die?
He died in October 2013.
Okay.
So it'll be 7 years this October.
Yeah.
And my husband died in 2003, so it'll be 17 years for him.
Wow.
Yeah, and the thing was, Al died October 20th, 2003, and the night before, we think Mark actually died on October 20th, but Kelly called me. Her mother was staying up there with her overnight the last week, and she called me about 6 o'clock in the morning, and she said, I think our boy left us last night, but he's still kind of breathing. So I went up and I got a hold of Paul, and my daughter was here, she had a cottage on I don't know where, on Waukee I think it was. So somebody went to get her. So we stayed there, and he really was gone, but you could just see a little bit of this. So I've always thought that, it's easy to remember the 2 dates since they're practically the same. And yeah, that was sad, and it still reverberates more with
I'm
Riley than with Kobe.
Yeah.
But it's funny.
Well, Riley was pretty young.
She was 12.
Yeah.
And 12, and he was 15. Those are hard ages anyway, on a good day.
Yes.
So I had told both of them that when they knew it, and Riley pretty much stayed out of school the last 3 or 4 days, and she just sat with them. But Kobe wanted to go to school, so I said, well, you do whatever Mark said, you do what you want to do. And then after school, they would sit with him for a while. But I know Kobe he didn't like to see it. And so the day I told both of them that I would come get them if he died while they were in school, and that I would not, no one else was to know until they came home. And once they got there, then they could call. So all the way home, Riley, well, first Kobe came, I came down, you know, at the woman at the school called for him, and he came down the hall, and he went like this, and I went like that, and I said, now we have to go get your sister. And Middleton goes, oh no, she's going to be a basket case. Which she was, but that was okay. We expected it. And then they stayed with Dawn. They always were about 4 nights with Mark and Kelly and 3 nights with Donna. But the last week when he was sick, I called Donna and I asked her to keep them, because I said if he dies in the evening, we didn't want him to see people coming in and taking him out and stuff. So, but then after that, they stayed with Kelly half the time, and then eventually Donna said, no, they have to stay with me. So that was fine. But Kelly's expecting a second baby in November, and she has a little girl, and she asked Kobe to be the godfather, which I thought was very nice, because Riley was the godmother to the first one. So she and they have kept up a relation, not a steady one, but it's nice.
Yep.
And she was very young too, you know. And driving into Boston, she kept saying, I've never done anything like this before. And I said, well, I've been through a few things, and I'll help you as much as I can. You know, that was when we got the call to come in, and he came home for 5 days, I think. So, yeah, it'll never be the same.
Nope.
But,
and now Riley is working at the summer camp at the youth center.
She loves working with kids, and she likes it, but there's a couple of those boys, and she's told me what they say to her. Oh, they're nasty. And she said she's gone to, is there a rod?
Yeah.
She said, I've told him. And then he said, well, call his mother, and called the mother, and the mother said, well, I've never known him to be violent. And Riley said, I didn't say he was violent.
Vulgar.
He's a pain in the neck. Yeah, so I think this week, and then there's one more week, I think.
I think so, yes.
Yeah. And I told her, you got to get a full-time job. She wouldn't go. She went to Colby Sawyer, you know, and then walked out on it. And she won't. Well, I think she will now. She's finally kind of rounded the corner and realizes
that's good,
that she needs to support herself.
And what have you been doing during this pandemic to kind of take care of yourself?
Well, I've cleaned a lot of stuff. Things you think about. I still have a bunch of stuff down cellar. I mean, I've got old records from the 1990s. I should just, Paul says, put them in one pile down there, and I'll come and take them and put them in the dumpster. But I haven't gotten that far yet. I do some walking. I have my exercise class Monday and Wednesdays at 1 o'clock online.
Okay. And what gym is that?
Well, we were going to the Laconia Community Center,
Okay.
because it's closed.
Yep.
And there were like 12 or 14 of us. Now, a couple of them would come and sit in a chair. They wouldn't do some of the exercises. But once this happened, and Carolyn was our instructor from LRGH, well, she got furloughed. So Chris and I decided, well, let's see if we can do it online. And this Eileen said she wanted to. And there was another lady who doesn't do, I don't know, she goes somewhere else in the summer, so maybe she'll be back. But the rest of them, a couple of them don't even have email, so I'm sure they wouldn't know how to get on. Not that I'm any whiz at it. But anyway, we do Monday and Wednesday, and there's the 3 of us. And then Carolyn surprised us yesterday, because she's back able to be the leader again, and hoping when the community center opens that maybe we'll have some of the others come back. I don't know. Depends. Some of them weren't too swift in it anyway. When you have to have 3 people pull you off the ground, sometimes it's...
Well, sometimes I need a couple of people.
Yeah, I know. But so that's pretty much it. I mean, I do some gardening around.
Yeah, your yard is beautiful.
Yeah, I love it. And this path Mark and Richie put in when they moved up back, so the kids, when they were little, could call up and say, "Can I come down?" And they'd come down the path, which needs another coating of rocks, but nobody ever walks on it anymore. Everybody's all grown up. And of course, my husband loved this house because of that barn came with it. And their daughter had a horse, and it had a stall and everything, and the horse would not stay in the barn.
Huh.
So there was one of those green rippled shelters up there in the woods, and I guess that's where the horse stayed. So he loved it because he loved woodworking, so he just took the barn over, and it was great. But Paul and Rich have pretty much taken the tools and stuff. So
I did a funeral a couple of weeks ago for a man that lived in Laconia, and they had a farm at their house. A little barn and a horse.
yeah,
And he was a real character. And one day, he paraded the horse through the house, through the living room, through the dining room, and out the front door.
just for
Just for the heck of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we were kind of glad the horse was gone. I mean, there are rods on that window, and the same in the back, I guess, so the horse couldn't have knocked the glass out. And he had all kinds of tools and stuff, but most of them, Paul's honchoed most of them, which is fine. I sure don't need them. So, other than that, my daughter's in Florida, and of course she's not able to come up because of all that's going on. She's a cook in a really nice restaurant in Kissimmee, or Celebration. She works in Celebration. She lives in Kissimmee. And they are back on schedule now, somewhat, like 3 days a week, and then a 4-day week, and back to a 3. Susan's really great, but she's trying to even out so that the ones that have stayed, get a similar amount of money for the week. So she's been down there for years. Her husband died, I don't know, well, he had died when Mark died, so he must have died about 9 or 10 years ago. And I was 20 days older than him. I used to call him Sonny. Yeah, and he was a character. Great guy, but did he like to drink.
So you and your daughter are both like older men.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, she was a handful. She was, there's one in every family. She was when she was junior high school. And I don't know what, that's the only marriage she ever had. And it actually, he got very ill, and I give her credit. She did a wonderful job, kept him at home, and got through it. And by then, she's just ingrained down there. So I wish, I said to her, I said, well, since you've got time off right now, why don't you come up for a few days? And she said, I just don't want to get on a plane right now.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I don't blame you.
Yep.
I mean, I don't think I want to either.
Yeah, and Florida's kind of a mess right now.
Yeah. She says where she is, because Disney was closed for a while, so they really had very little business.
Yep.
But now that it's reopened, at least partially, there is more business. But I've been to that restaurant a few times. Al and I were down there, and then my brother, and I stayed with him in Sarasota one year. We drove up there for lunch, and it's just crazy. It's a wonderful restaurant, but like everything else, it's not making a lot of money right now. So, I should. It's so funny to sometimes to think of Mark. The good thing is, I think Riley is turning a corner. I hope.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she is. She has a nice boyfriend. She's living with him, and that's good, because she and her mother fight a lot, although she's devoted to her mother. So I hope. I try to do as much as I can. She wants to learn to cook, so we've done a couple of meals. And I just found a recipe that I think she could do, so next time she's around. But she's got to get a job. That's her main focus once she gets through this. They haven't had as many kids either, I don't think, this year at the camp. It's been funny. She said some will have 3, and another day I might have 8 or 9.
Huh.
It's
Well,
not.
I think they've broken them down into groups, but I think on a typical day there's close to 20 kids there.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I think there might be three counselors.
Mason
Mason
and his girlfriend.
Riley, Mason's girlfriend, and then Rod, who runs it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Scott's not running them.
No.
No.
Nope.
Well, I don't really blame him. He probably did his share, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because she said that the van takes 15, and usually that's enough if they're going to the beach or.
Yeah, I think they take 2 trips a lot of times.
Yeah.
They don't fill it to capacity just for.
That's right, because of sitting not
Yep.
close. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. What are we all going to do when it gets back to normal?
I don't know.
If it ever gets back to
Well,
normal.
let's hope we find a vaccine, huh?
I know. It's I mean, I think Dr. Fossey sounds like he's smart, but boy, Trump doesn't like him. And then that woman, Burke, she keeps getting slammed down if she says anything. And I think, gosh, let them try it. They're the professionals
Yep.
in that department.
Yep.
Yeah, I hope there is some. My brother and his wife are in Sarasota, and I had my ticket for Florida because I always go there for 3 nights before I go down to Marco.
Mm.
And I had met his new wife, but I, didn't really know her that well. So I was just looking forward to it, and then I almost got on the plane, and then started hearing all more things. And
Yeah.
and I said, and he called me and he said, I don't think you should. And I said, no, I was just going to call you and say, no, I'm not
Yep.
going to. And do you know Mary Lou John?
No.
No. She's an artist. She's a good friend. We worked in the barn at Southdown in the old days.
Mm.
Suffered through John Davison and his tirades and all that. But anyway, she and her husband bought a nice place down in Bonita Springs. So I was going to leave Bob's after 2 nights and drive there and stay overnight one night. I've stopped there the last couple of years for lunch on my way to Marco, but she wanted me to do that. And I wanted to see more of her area too, because
Sure.
it really is beautiful.
Mm.
So I think they stayed later than they ordinarily would, just because it was easier to be there than to try to come back up here.
Yep.
And that's why my brother didn't come up. He usually comes up and spends a month in Nantucket, where he used to live. But he said, I don't want to stop at Hampton Inns, and you worry the bed's changed and who touched this. And then you go in a restaurant and you don't even know if you can get
Yeah.
in. So I said, no, we'll just stay here and do our thing. He's a retired American Airlines pilot, so
Mm.
and they just bought a home, not a condo. So I don't know why at his age he's doing that. But that's not my business. So.
Yep.
Nope. And my sister is the youngest. She lives in Jaffrey right now. And so in April, and again about 2 or 3 weeks ago, she drove to this Dunkin' Donuts. It's Henniker or Hopkinton. I came up 89, and I did the same on this end. And then we sat in the parking lot with the back of our vans up and had spent 2 hours, brought our own lunches, and it was really it was more fun than being just on email.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so that was nice. And I've been out to where she lives. She and her husband just rent an apartment from his son, and then it's another hour. And I said, Barbara, can't we meet halfway? That I-89, when those trucks are going slow, oh my God, it's scary. But anyway, we did that, so we hope maybe we'll do that again once
Good.
more, maybe in September. So, other than that, I guess life goes on.
It does. And I want to thank you so much for letting me come over to your beautiful house.
Oh, it will.
And I appreciate all your support and all that you do for the church.
Well, I'd like to try to do more as much as I can, because I think there were worthy things there. But there is a real good group of people that are willing to step up too,
Yep.
which is nice.
Yes.
Some people I know give an awful lot of time,
Yep.
and so is that still going?
Yep.
I just, well,
I'm going to say goodbye.
goodbye.